Thanks, Jennifer, and good morning, everyone. So I'm actually going to make sure I've got the slide up. Yeah, so I'm going to have a counter message actually today. So I actually believe there's a massive capital deficit that mining's facing, both in project capital as well as venture capital. And the question we need to ask ourselves is business as usual with incremental change going to get us to where we need to be? Or do we need to reimagine mining? And for the next 9.5 minutes, I'm going to be exploring that topic with you and hopefully leave you with one new insight or thought to consider what's the answer to that question. We know how that's being driven. Okay, let me just, and that is the energy transition, which is actually moving us from a fossil fuel-based energy system through to a minerals-based energy system. And there's a tremendous amount of implications underneath that. What's unprecedented about this is it's time-bound. We've never faced a situation, other than maybe in world wars, where something has to happen in a very given time frame. And we see that as kind of the 2035 to 2050 time frame if we're to meet Paris climate goals, which, we can argue whether that's realistic or not. So what's going to happen is that's putting, unprecedented demand on mineral supply. Let's go back one. We jumped one. I'm just getting used to the slide projection. So I call it the minerals famine. So particularly in copper, we're seeing, there's lots of estimates around, but we're thinking around a 10 million ton gap by 2035. And that translates into hundreds of millions of EVs, enormous amounts of wind farms, electrical vehicles. So if you think about it, we've got this transition going on. We've really got a mining industry, I think, that's going business as usual with incremental change for a whole bunch of rational reasons, actually. And yet we have this massive minerals deficit and famine that we're approaching. We really need to think about how we approach that in the time frame that we've been given. So this gives the mining industry a dual challenge, if you think about it. So one is, how do I deliver an affordable, adequate, secure supply of these minerals? But those minerals need to be responsibly extracted and processed. And there's lots of definitions of what responsible looks like. And again, there's a lot of outward pressure coming into the mining industry defining what that is, whether it's from downstream companies like the auto companies that are making promises to their consumers, from communities, indigenous, non-indigenous communities. So there's a lot of forces coming into mining and focus on mining that we've never experienced before. So how do we address that? How do we tackle this? So there's kind of two pillars, I think, here. So one is, and remember this is all in the context of how do we send signals to the market to deliver capital both on a project level as well as venture level. And we'll talk a little bit more about some volumes. There was a great article in the FT 2 days ago where BlackRock said that society's inclination to dislike mining, we want the minerals but we don't like mining, is severely impacting investment in mining. To the extent that mining's undervalued significantly on a kind of PE basis from the S&P 500, for example. So there's real challenges here. So the industry needs to do things differently to send signals to the capital markets and other sectors to say things that we're reimagining how we do things to make kind of people embrace the industry. So on one hand, it's the innovation opportunity, and I call that, we've got to stop calling ourselves mining companies. That's one thing. And Mark Cutifani and I kind of share this vision, as we know the technical challenges of declining grade, waste energy and water intensity is going up exponentially. But we need to move from somebody that mines things into, we provide materials to society that has certain characteristics. So that means the industry has to embrace recycling. It has to embrace thrifting, which means using less of it in applications. And finally, we need to lead in material substitution. So if you look at De Beers, they also invest in Element 6, which are synthetic diamonds. So they're both doing mining diamonds and synthetic diamonds. Vale, as well as Glencore, embracing recycling a little. But I think we need to move away from the thing we do, which is mining, into the thing that we provide society, which is materials that perform certain tasks. And the other one is collaboration and how we engage with society. First at mine sites with communities and indigenous people. I call that the indigenous reframe. And in DPI, we do an enormous amount of work on that and really understanding what they want from the future in terms of prosperity, how we integrate indigenous values into projects and contracts, way beyond what the industry is doing currently. There's a lot of work to be done. And we can only achieve that if we work closely together and collaborate well, both within the sector and across sectors and public-private partnerships. So how do we overcome this capital deficit? Okay, so one quote back on the other one, just to recall, is, so Mark Cutifani actually was speaking at the Bloomberg New Energy Forum, and if you don't believe me, he said at the New Energy Forum that one, that the returns from scale are increasingly diminishing, and that we need to reinvent and redo the processes that we've used for mining for over the last 100 years. Because really, we're mining, it's bigger, it's electric, but it's essentially the same mechanical processes that we've been employing for over a century. So what we need to do to attract capital is really send signals to the marketplace that things are different. And a couple of things I'll pick out on here is we already underinvest in innovation, and particularly the transformative type. And we need to kind of harmonize the investment that's spread across states and provinces and institutions. And it needs to be kind of harmonized and concentrated on the big challenges we face. Because right now, you just have lots of small pots of money doing little things, and we can't get that scale. We need to increase the pot of venture capital that's available, and we need to increase corporate venture capital, which is the money the mining companies invest. And I have a couple of statistics. But critically, we need to build trust. ICMM, I was at their leadership forum in London 2 weeks ago speaking, and they released the Global Scan Trust Survey. I mean, mining is the least trusted industry in the world, with a negative trust off the charts, and lower than oil and gas, lower than chem. And you can't get things done when you are not trusted, whether you do it at the mine site, you do it in the marketplace. We're just not a trusted industry. And therefore, we need to kind of build that trust, and you do that through collaboration, deepen understanding of our purpose in society. And I think that's really critical. So there's a whole circle. So all these things need to happen all at the same time. And we'll think about, and hopefully that's kind of stimulating your thinking that maybe we do need to do some things differently. So we are seeing some green shoots out there. So, I mean, we wouldn't have seen these headlines in The Economist and Wall Street Journal, but is it really enough? So think about this. So InvestMet's report said, yeah, there's kind of 500 million in, other than project capital, not just venture capital, but acquisitions and all that. They said that's a drop in the ocean, and we get excited about that number. BHP put out a number recently that said to meet copper demand, we need to invest $250 billion in new growth capital in copper. And so far, the mining industry's committed 40 billion. So it's a $200 billion deficit in the next 7 years in investment in copper. Let's take venture capital, and I sit on 2 venture fund boards in the US. And I mean, we shouldn't get, I mean, there are, like BHP's got a ventures fund, we've got a few VC funds, but really, so if you compare us to the oil and gas industry, and you do it on a per capita revenue basis, so they invest from corporate venture capital into startups around $3 to $7 billion a year. Mining invests, the corporate venture funds, about 100 million. So if you did it just on a revenue basis, comparable, the mining industry should be investing annually $1 to $2 billion a year in startups, not 50 to 100. And what that does, it sends signals to venture capital firms that this is an industry that's taking innovation seriously. It's a signal to entrepreneurs. And we avoid the situation of what I call stranded research, that they can't get the capital and the entrepreneurs to do it, or stunted startups that get initial capital but then can't get growth capital to really scale and grow their businesses. Now, it's not all doom and gloom. There's some really good examples of people like Cobalt AI. I sit on the board of Lilac, which is a direct lithium extraction company. So there are positive signs, but these are only green shoots, and we need to make them the rule, not the exception right now in the industry. So, we have people like Orion, RCF, Jolimont, EMR, and Saudi Arabia entering the marketplace with significant amounts of capital. So in one sense, it's very exciting, but we really need to do more. So I want to loop back to the question. So should we do business as usual? Or should we reimagine mining? So I come from the school of thought that we need to reimagine mining dramatically. And I actually borrowed shamelessly a quote from the Vice Minister Khalid in Saudi Arabia. So where they really talk about modern mining. So first we need a mindset shift. We need to move from miners to material providers. It requires tremendous culture change within organizations to do things differently. And finally, we need to develop new approaches. So if we're to deliver on this vision of modern mining, it's going to take determination, new technology, new approaches, but above all, it takes leadership. So my daughter's doing organizational psychology, master's in the US, and I asked her to write something about how you change the mining industry, which she knows nothing about. And she actually said that her research showed mining was rather conservative to the point of stagnation, which was like, ouch. But she laid out a map of, these are the things leadership need to do to make the kind of transformation that are necessary. So it really is going to take, bold leadership, leadership that's visionary, but inspirational, but it's really committed and stand out in front. So I kind of put that challenge out to you all and all the leadership in the mining industry globally, that we really need to reimagine how we work technically, how we mine, how we work on the ground from an environmental, social perspective, to deliver societal's needs for the energy transition, which is rather significant. So hopefully I've left you with some new thoughts, something to think about, and I'm around if you want to chat later. So thank you very much, really appreciate the time.